Good day, everyone. Today we will discuss program evaluation. This is an important concept in public health, clinical programs, and health system management. As future physicians, you will not only treat patients, many of you will eventually design, implement, or manage health programs. For example, vaccination campaigns, screening programs, hospital policies, or community interventions. Program evaluation allows us to answer a critical question. Is the program actually working? This lecture will introduce the basic concepts of program evaluation, how it differs from research, and how we design an evaluation study. At the end of the session, you should be able to do three things. First, define program evaluation and distinguish it from traditional research. Second, identify the major components of the evaluation process, such as needs assessment, process evaluation, and outcome evaluation. Third, design a simple evaluation framework for a health program. These skills are especially useful when working in community medicine, hospital management, public health programs, and health policy. This lecture draws from several key references in program evaluation. Some foundational authors include Michael Scriven and Michael Keane-Patton, both pioneers in evaluation science. The lecture also references evaluation frameworks used by organizations such as the CDC, as well as practical evaluation guidelines such as the Evaluate checklist. The goal today is not to memorize authors, but to understand the logic and structure behind evaluation. Program evaluation belongs to a broader area known as health outcomes research. We have teach you about descriptive research designs, analytical research designs, and experimental research designs. But for program evaluation, it belongs to the health outcomes research. Traditional medical research often focuses on biological mechanisms or treatment efficacy. However, outcomes research asks a different question. How do healthcare intervention affect real patients in real systems? Examples include health technology evaluation, economic evaluation, healthcare decision research, quality of life research, program evaluation, modeling and decision analysis. Most of the principles of health outcomes research comes from the International Society for Pharmacoeconomics and Outcomes Research, or ISPOR. For example, evaluating whether a hospital's fall prevention program actually reduces fractures would be considered program evaluation. One of the earliest definitions of evaluation comes from Michael Scriven. He described evaluation as the systematic determination of the merit, worth, or value of an object. There are three important constructs in the definition. Systematic meaning the evaluation follows structured methods. Merit means the intrinsic value of something, and worth the value of something within a specific context. For example, a hospital training program may be excellent in theory, but if it is too expensive or impractical, its overall worth may be low. Program evaluation therefore examines both quality and practicality. An alternative definition by Michael Patton proposed a more operational definition. He defined evaluation as the systematic collection of information about activities, characteristics, and results of programs in order to make judgments about the program, improve effectiveness, uh, inform decisions, and increase understanding. One important feature of Patton's definition is the emphasis on intended users. Evaluation is not just an academic exercise. It is conducted for decision makers such as hospital administrators, public health officials, or program managers. So, what is evaluation? Several scholars have defined evaluation slightly differently, but they all emphasize similar themes. Evaluation is a coordinated process used to determine value or effectiveness based on systematic assessment. In practical terms, evaluation means critically analyzing a program to determine whether it works and how it can be improved. For example, if a hospital launches a smoking cessation clinic, evaluation determines whether the clinic actually helped patients stop smoking. Evaluation is not a one-time activity. Instead, it is an ongoing process of critical analysis. Programs evolve over time, and evaluation helps guide these changes. For example, if a hospital launches a new patient trial system, evaluation can identify problems early and recommend improvements. To put it simply, although research and evaluation are very similar and both use systematic methods, their intent and purposes differ. As Patton says, research seeks to prove, evaluation seeks to improve. Evaluation involves looking closely at the operations of programs or program initiatives, and with the understanding gained from this examination, making recommendations to improve the program. It's important to always keep this difference in mind and remember that your intention in doing the evaluation is to help improve programs, not to blame or criticize or to seek to eliminate anything. Before we talk about what evaluation is, let's review what evaluation isn't. Let's differentiate now between research and evaluation. Okay. So both evaluation and research employ systematic methods in their investigations. However, there are fundamental differences between the two. While research is generally conducted to produce knowledge that is generalizable across programs, evaluations are conducted to generate findings intended for use by the specific programs only, under which they are conducted. In research, the questions for investigation are researcher derived. Questions for evaluation, on the other hand, are derived from the program itself or its stakeholders. Evaluation is value based, thus, it is judgmental in quality. Unlike evaluation, research is usually conducted without judgments and biases. For this reason, research is typically conducted in a more controlled setting to minimize bias. Since evaluation findings are to be used for program improvements, they are conducted in a real world setting and take into account the environment and the context. In research, the role of a researcher is more clearly defined. Evaluators, on the other hand, may often face role conflicts because they are part of the program in which the evaluation is conducted. Because research and evaluation are conducted for very different reasons, research seeks to add to generalizable knowledge, while evaluation seeks to generate information useful for the program improvements for a specific program. Research findings are usually published, whereas evaluation findings are often not. For the same reasons, research has a clearer allegiance, whereas evaluation has multiple allegiances, because it can affect more people and its results are used by more people. For example, TB research findings can be used to develop initiatives that are implemented uh, that in real-world settings. The initiatives can be evaluated using a program evaluation that takes into consideration the setting and context. If the evaluation finds that the initiative is not successful, it may be that the research was fine but did not work in the program's context, or the initiative was not implemented properly. So why do we evaluate programs? There are several reasons why we evaluate programs. First, to determine whether the program is effective. Second, to determine whether the program is efficient in its use of resources. And third, to determine whether the program should be continued, expanded, modified, or discontinued. And lastly, to be able to build capacity. For example, if a hospital introduces a pressure ulcer prevention program, evaluation tells us whether the ulcer rates decreased, the staff followed the protocol, or the intervention was cost effective. One way to classify evaluation is based on who conducts the evaluation. Evaluations may be conducted internally or externally. The distinction affects objectivity, cost, and feasibility. When we say internal evaluation, it is conducted by staff members within the organization. Then that's why it's called internal. The advantage is that internal evaluators are familiar with the program and its context. However, there may be potential bias, especially if evaluators are directly involved in the program. External evaluation, on the other hand, is conducted by independent evaluators, often third-party consultants. The advantage is greater objectivity. However, external evaluators may require time to understand the program and its environment. Many programs use a combination of internal and external evaluation. So what are the components of a program evaluation? Program evaluation usually follows several stages. First is needs analysis, which determines whether the program is needed. This is followed by the feasibility study, which determines whether the program can realistically be implemented. Third is process evaluation, or the monitoring of whether the program is implemented correctly. Fourth is cost analysis, or looking at the cost effectiveness of the program. Fifth is outcome evaluation, or determining whether the program achieved its goals. And finally, impact evaluation, which examines the program's broader effects. These components ensure a comprehensive evaluation framework. Program evaluation can be further classified into three broad categories. We have the formulative evaluation, which is done prior to program implementation or development. Then we have the formative evaluation, which is done while the program is being implemented, and the summative evaluation that at the end to determine overall effectiveness. Formulative evaluation can be further broken into needs analysis and feasibility study. Formative evaluation can be subdivided into process evaluation and cost effectiveness analysis. And lastly, summative evaluation is done through outcome evaluation and impact evaluation. Now let us look at each stage one by one. Planning or formulative evaluation involves examining the developmental issues prior to setup. Planning evaluation focuses on the program's design stage. Planning evaluations answer several key questions. Why is the program needed? Who is the target population? Who are the stakeholders? What are the goals and objectives? What resources are required? And what is the timeline? For example, before launching a diabetes screening program, planners must first determine the prevalence of diabetes and available resources. Proper planning increases the likelihood that the program will succeed. Now we go to the second stage, which is the process or formative evaluation. This involves monitoring the process, ensuring activities are completed on time and on target while the program is ongoing. This tells you if you're on track, and this will point to improvement. Process evaluation examines how the program is actually implemented. It asks questions such as: was the program delivered as planned? How many people participated? What were the strengths and weaknesses? And process evaluation helps identify implementation problems. For example, if a vaccination program fails, process evaluation may reveal that vaccines were unavailable or that staff were inadequately trained. Process evaluation monitors program implementation while the program is ongoing. It ensures that activities are completed on time and according to plan. It also identifies opportunities for program improvement. So, what are the methods used for process evaluation? There are three common approaches. First is process evaluation using qualitative methods. This approach seeks to understand how or why a program works or why it does not. For example, interviews with healthcare workers may reveal barriers to implementing a clinical protocol. Second is implementation analysis, which usually involves mixed methods. The focus here is on determining whether the program was implemented as originally designed. Third is program monitoring, which is often also mixed methods. This is conducted while the program is ongoing and examines whether it is progressing towards its intended goals. Together, these approaches helps us understand not just the results of a program, but how it actually operates in practice. When conducting a process evaluation, we can collect two broad types of data: quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative data refers to numerical measurements such as number of participants who attended a program session. Qualitative data refers to descriptive information such as participants' opinions, experiences, or perceptions. Both types of data are valuable, and often the best evaluations use a combination of both. There are several methods used to collect this information. These include interviews, focus group discussions, observations, direct observations, questionnaires or surveys, and analysis of existing documents such as report or attendance records. Using multiple data sources allows evaluators to obtain a more complete picture of how the program is functioning. Client satisfaction surveys are often used as one component of a program evaluation. This survey asks participants about their experience with the program, including whether they found it helpful, accessible, or relevant. Client satisfaction surveys can provide valuable insights into how the program is perceived by its users. For example, in a hospital-based health education program, participants may report whether the information was easy to understand or whether the program schedule was convenient. However, satisfaction surveys also have important limitations. Participants may report high satisfaction even if the program did not actually produce measurable health outcomes. Therefore, satisfaction surveys should be viewed as only one component of a comprehensive evaluation rather than the sole measure of a program success. Process evaluation has several important characteristics. First, it usually combines both quantitative and qualitative measures. This allows evaluators to capture both numerical indicators and participant experiences. Second, process evaluation is primarily descriptive in design. Its goal is not necessarily to prove causation, but rather to describe how the program is implemented and how it functions. Third, process evaluation is particularly useful because it can identify problems during program implementation. This means corrective actions can be taken while the program is still ongoing rather than waiting until it ends. In this way, process evaluation supports continuous program improvement. In process evaluation, we often distinguish between the process being examined and the type of measurement used to assess it. For example, we may examine program reach and participation rates. These are typically measured using quantitative data such as counts of attendance or participation levels. Another aspect is the views of the target audience or participants. These are often assessed using mixed methods such as satisfaction surveys that include both numerical ratings and open-ended responses. We may also examine the program's strengths and weaknesses. This type of information is usually obtained through qualitative methods such as semi-structured interviews with participants or program staff. Finally, we assess whether the program was implemented as intended. This usually requires synthesizing multiple data sources, including participant feedback, program records, and document reviews. Together, these measures allow evaluators to determine whether the program is functioning as planned and reaching its intended audience. Now we move to the third stage of the program evaluation, the summative evaluation. Outcome or summative evaluation involves assessing the outcome at the conclusion of the program and measure the change that has occurred as a result of the program. It shows what impact you have on a problem and helps justify the program. Summative evaluation determines whether the program worked. The goal is to provide evidence that the observed results were caused by the program rather than by chance or external factors. This type of evaluation is often used to justify whether a program should be continued or expanded. Outcome evaluation measures the actual results of the program. It focuses on changes that occurred after implementation. For example, the smoking cessation program reduced smoking rates. Did the nutrition program reduce childhood malnutrition? Outcome evaluation often uses comparisons such as before and after measurements. Outcome evaluation relies heavily on comparative analysis. This may involve pre-test and post-test measurements, control groups, and comparison groups. These methods help determine whether the observed outcomes are truly attributable to the program. Although outcome data are often quantitative, qualitative data may also provide valuable insights. Evaluation uses both qualitative and quantitative methods. Qualitative methods answer how and why questions, while quantitative methods answer what happened and measures outcomes. Most robust evaluation combine both approaches in the mixed methods design. Next, we look at how we write a program evaluation. Writing a program evaluation study includes several components. This typically includes introduction. These typically include introduction, conceptual framework, objectives, program description, indicators, methodology, results, discussion, conclusions, and recommendations. The difference between traditional research papers and program evaluations uh, is the program description. Okay, so program evaluation does not follow the typical IMRAD writing of research. One of the most widely used frameworks comes from the CDC Program Evaluation Framework. This framework emphasizes stakeholder engagement, program description, evaluation design, data collection, and use of findings. It provides a systematic structure for conducting evaluations in public health programs. The six steps of program evaluation are shown in a circle representing the circular nature of the evaluation process. As depicted, the steps are interdependent and they may be conducted in a nonlinear order. Often, more than one step is ongoing at any time. The framework provides the flexibility to go backwards or forwards in the process depending upon the need. Although the steps can be conducted in a different order or simultaneously, there is a reason for the way they have been sequenced. The earlier steps provide the foundation for the subsequent ones. It is important to note that each one of these steps play a role and is crucial to the process. The circle also represents that the program evaluation process is iterative. As program evaluation is conducted, the information and findings are used to feed back into the program to make improvements. The process repeats itself in a cycle to improve the program and its effectiveness in achieving its objectives. At the center or core of the circle are the evaluation standards. These four standards are intended to maximize the quality and effectiveness of evaluation efforts. They are the criteria and standards by which the quality of your program evaluation efforts can be judged. They are applicable to each of the six steps in the evaluation framework. Professional evaluation practice is guided by several standards, and this was formed by the Joint Committee of Program Evaluation Standards. These standards include utility, feasibility, propriety, and accuracy. These standards ensure that evaluation studies are ethical, practical, and scientifically sound. Utility standards ensure that evaluation findings meet stakeholders' information needs, and evaluation is only useful if its findings can inform decisions. Feasibility standards ensure that the evaluation can be implemented given available resources. This includes considering time, personnel, and budget constraints. Proprietary standards ensure that evaluations are conducted ethically and legally. They protect the rights and welfare of program participants. Accuracy standards ensure that evaluations produce reliable and valid findings. This requires appropriate data collection methods and rigorous analysis. These four standards help ensure that evaluations are credible and ethical. Stakeholders play a central role in program evaluation, and they include program managers, program participants, policymakers, and funding agencies. Engaging stakeholders ensure that the evaluation addresses relevant questions and that results are actually used for decision making. Before evaluating a program, we must first clearly describe the program. This includes program goals, problems being addressed, strategies and activities, expected outcomes, and required resources. Without a clear program description, evaluation becomes impossible or meaningless. A key principle in evaluation is that an activity is not the same as a program. For example, conducting a health seminar is only an activity. A program includes multiple coordinated activities designed to achieve a larger goal. Evaluating a single activity does not necessarily reflect the effectiveness of an entire program. Evaluation design determines when and how data are collected. Three common designs include status design or snapshot of the current situation, a comparison design or comparing two groups or program, and a change design which measures differences between before and after the program. Choosing the appropriate design depends on the evaluation question. Program evaluation focuses on several domains: implementation, whether the program was delivered as intended; effectiveness, which tests whether it achieved its outcomes; efficiency, which checks whether resources were used appropriately; and causal attribution, which shows whether the program actually caused the observed outcomes. Together, these domains provide a comprehensive picture of a program performance. Several research designs can be used in program evaluation. These include randomized controlled trials, before and after studies with control group, and pre and post studies without control groups. While RCTs provide the strongest evidence, they are not always feasible in real world program settings. Before drawing conclusion, we must consider threats to validity. Internal validity refers to whether the results truly reflect the program's effects. External validity refers to whether results can be generalized to other settings. Failure to address these threats may lead to incorrect conclusions. Now let's talk about internal validity, which refers to whether the observed effects in a study are actually caused by the intervention or program being evaluated. In other words, internal validity asks, did our intervention truly produce the results, or were other factors responsible? There are several threats to internal validity. First is the history effect. This occurs when changes in the participants are caused by events happening in their environment during the study period. For example, if we are evaluating a health education program, but at the same time a national health campaign is running on television, improvements in behavior might be due to that campaign rather than our program. Second is the maturation effect. This refers to natural changes occurring within the participants themselves over time. People may gain knowledge, skills, or physical development simply because time has passed and not necessarily because of the intervention. Third is the instrumentation effect. This concerns whether the measurement tools used were consistent and valid. If the tools or methods of collecting baseline data were flawed or changed during the study, then the results might not accurately reflect real changes. Fourth is the testing effect. Sometimes the act of taking a pretest increases awareness among participants because they already saw the questions. They may perform better later, not because of the intervention, but because they became familiar with the topics. Next is selection effects. If the control group and experimental groups differ in important characteristics such as age, education, or socioeconomic status, then the outcomes may be influenced by those differences rather than the intervention. Finally, there is the attrition effect, which occurs when participants drop out of the study. If many participants leave, especially in one group more than the other, the final results may become biased. So overall, when evaluating research results, we must always examine whether these factors might have affected the study's internal validity. Next, we move to external validity, which refers to the extent to which the results of a study can be generalized to other populations, settings, or situations. In simple terms, external validity asks, can the findings be applied before the specific study group, beyond the specific study group? One major threat of external validity is the selection treatment interaction. This happens when the characteristics of the population in the pilot study differ from populations in other areas. For example, if a health program is tested in an urban community with high literacy levels, the same program might not produce the same results in a rural area with lower literacy. Another factor is the situation effect. The context or environment of the study may be unique. For instance, a pilot program may succeed because it had highly trained health workers, better facilities, or more advanced technology. When a program is implemented elsewhere with fewer resources, the result might be different. The third factor is the multiple treatment effect. Sometimes the observed success of a program is influenced by other ongoing programs or intervention. When several initiatives occur simultaneously, they may interact and produce a synergistic effect, making it difficult to determine whether the results came from the program being evaluated or from the combination of programs. One example of this is the nutrition program. The nutrition program being implemented is usually a combination of the nutrition program of the Department of Health, nutrition program of the local health office, nutrition program of the DepEd, and nutrition program of the DSWD. This does not include the nutrition program of a non-government organization. And all of these nutrition programs usually target the same individuals or the same children. So the results may not be from one program itself, but from different programs altogether. Therefore, when interpreting research findings, we must always consider whether the results can truly be applied to other populations, environments, and situations. Finally, when writing your final paper, be sure to follow the Evaluate checklist. This provides the required content for a journal publication in a program evaluation research paper. Let us summarize the key points. First, we distinguish research from evaluation. Second, we review the components of a program evaluation, including planning process and outcome evaluation. Third, we discuss how to design and conduct an evaluation study. Program evaluation is an essential tool for improving healthcare systems and public health programs. Two final quotes highlight the importance of evaluation. Simply measuring and reporting results can already promote improvement. However, excessive monitoring may also slow down innovation. Therefore, evaluation must be balanced and purposeful. If you remember only one thing from today's lecture, remember this. Evaluation is a tool for decision making. It helps leaders determine whether a program should be continued, modified, expanded, or stopped. As future physicians, you will not only deliver care, you will also help design and improve healthcare systems. Program evaluation will help you do that effectively. Before I end, I would like to share this example with you. This is a publication from a program evaluation research that we conducted back in 2019. This was eventually published in the Health Science Journal. I'm showing this to you because in research, we should always aim to walk the talk, not only discuss evaluation concepts in theory, but also apply them in real programs and document the results. I hope this example serves as an inspiration for you as you move forward in your research journey. In your second year, you will begin developing your research protocol, and by your third year, you will present your research outputs. Always remember that research should not end with completing a requirement. The goal is to disseminate knowledge through publications, conference presentations, and other scientific forums so that your findings can contribute to improving programs, policies, and practices. Thank you very much for listening.